All right. Hello, Wild and Well listeners. Thanks for joining us today. Jen and I are excited to be here for her Huddle. It's Monday morning. And this week, we're going to get into digital detox. We have some discussions and practical applications for us to engage with. And also, we really want us to think in a world of constant notifications and endless scrolling, a digital detox invites us to pause and come back to ourselves. Stepping away from the screens help calm the nervous system, restore focus, and reconnect us to what actually matters. And we'll get into what emotions are coming up even as you hear us start to lead in the overview. But we really want this to be calming, formative, and hope-filled for a way for us to use the digital world in a way that benefits us and that we don't become slaves to it. Jen, what is the word of the week?
Word of the week. So this week it comes from the Spanish language and it's a phrase, two words. It is ayuno digital, which literally means digital fast. So it's a Spanish version's translation of digital detox using sort of more of a spiritual or food metaphor of a fast to really step away so you can reset and reconnect. It's perfect for this week.
Yeah, perfect. But as you're sharing that, I just pulled up fasting because I wanted to see what is the actual definition of fasting because I hear it in different
Mm.
contexts, but it says, and thank you to the web, the World Wide Web, it says the primary goal is not self-punishment or withdrawal, but to draw closer to something, perhaps God, a spiritual clarity or wisdom, to express repentance or an awareness of wanting to be different or more, to seek specific divine guidance or intervention. So I like that of if
I
I'm
do
going to
too.
release digital, if I'm going to fast from the digital world, it says I'm going to give up something that is good or something that is neutral, something that is potentially bad, but something, let's release morality and say something that I enjoy. I'll give that. Digital world, I enjoy. And we'll get into the whys. So I give up the digital world because I want to know God more, or I want to know myself more, or I want to prioritize a nourishment or connection with the divine or with my community around me.
Yeah, I do too. And I think as you were reading that definition, the thing that stood out to me was it's not punishment. It's
Yes.
not meant to be a punishment. It's like almost more of an intentional choice. Maybe there's some friction fasting for X amount of time, 12 hours, 24 hours, however long you're doing it. That can be difficult. Um, and so can a digital detox or digital fast. And it's something you're sort of choosing to do intentionally. It is not punishment. That feels like a important point.
Yes. And ayuno digital, I think about the fact that that's a Spanish word. You and I both speak English and Spanish. And if we had other people on who speak Asian languages or African languages, I'd be curious what it would be in their language. And so as you're listening, please submit what are those phrases in your language? Because the piece that sticks out is it's the same, right? Is that what we are not alone and we're not the experts in the sense that we have it figured out. We're on the journey of figuring it out. We're on the journey to committing to saying life is worth me pulling away at certain points from my phone, from the digital world, because I need that for my well being. But it's not
Yeah.
a morality issue, it's a health and wellness issue. And
Hmm.
so that's where I really enjoy that this is almost word for word and even some spiritual, right? Of, oh, when I do that, I am more of a being. I am more of as I was designed. And
Hmm.
so that's pretty cool. And so thinking through that for me, you brought this up in the prep is how do I remain curious in the navigation of a relationship with a phone? Because for my childhood, I didn't have a phone. And
Yeah.
then in my teen years, I got a brick phone, which was like play Snake, right? And you wanted to grow and grow and grow. And then that phone that could break apart into 5 pieces as a Nokia. I still have it seared into my brain. My sister was older than me, so she had a pay-as-you-go phone. We're talking, we lived in that generation without it in our childhood. If I go back to those days, I guess it would have been once. Oh man, this is pulling back to my teen years. But I'd be under the table thinking I was so cool. And my dad would put your phone down. And so I remember those days. I remember them vividly. And then, right then comes the smartphone in 2012, radically changes our environment. And then now we're 13, 14 years past that and trying to navigate what does it look like with all these cool apps. Is going back into digital though, is we have our own relationships with how the phone has operated, how the internet has operated, and how we've engaged with it. And so I really appreciate that you brought up to me, be curious. How do we teach it from, or how do we explore it from a curiosity and not a punishment based conversation or a shame based conversation? What is your relationship with the digital world and what's coming up for you?
I think initially when I heard the word digital detox, I did sort of, I don't know if anybody else out there listening did this too, but did a mini eye roll. I have, I'm so connected to my phone, as we all are, I think. It's my work, it's my social, it's my logistics, it's so many different things, it's my banking. And so my initial reaction, I was like, okay, I should pay attention to what that little mini eye roll is telling me. And I don't even know if the word detox and fast feels a little bit more an intentional choice. And so I think that I ultimately know in my mind, in my heart, that less time on my phone leads to a better version of me, leads to a more connected version of me in my relationships, and will optimize my day to day. I know that this truth exists. It's just I have to continue reminding myself of it. And I have been doing this thing where, funny enough, if my husband's listening, he will laugh. But the people in my family, a lot of us have tech, or some of us are technologically challenged. And we often run into low or no storage on our phones. And so I have 4,000 photos on my phone, and I'm scared to death to like delete them or move them to another location because I'm afraid I'm going to lose them forever. And so part of that, I then have this reminder on my phone. You no longer have enough storage space to download that app. You no longer have enough storage space on your phone to get the new iOS system. So I'm like having to like strip my phone of these apps because I don't have enough storage space. In doing so, my phone is becoming less interesting and I'm on it less. I had to delete Instagram, had to delete Zillow, had to delete LinkedIn. Those are three probably the most frequented places where you can find me doom scrolling. All of a sudden, I'm on my phone less. This wasn't intentional, but I've just landed here and I'm really good with it, actually. So that's where I currently find myself.
I love that. Let's take a deep dive into a rabbit hole real quick because you and I can relate in this, and I'm curious how many other listeners. Let's talk about the whole Zillow Redfin. For those of you that are out of state, Redfin is the app that we use to look at housing in Colorado. And many years of my life have been obsessed with looking at homes, and they're so cool. And I will look at homes from the low range, which still is expensive. Let's call it what it is. But like 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and wish I could say it was for 100,000. That no longer exists in Colorado. I don't know what it is. But nonetheless, from that all the way up, you can look at like $10 million homes, which let me tell you, that is so far out of my budget. That's not even in the comprehension of anything in my lifetime. Nonetheless, you can see those on there. That is so cool. And you can see how people model their bathrooms. At least for me, I'm saying you, but that's the royal you. Let me rephrase that and say, I love Redfin.
Well, I do the same. John, my husband, will look over and he'll see me just scrolling on a $5 million house. He's like, I think your filters are broken. Your filters are broken. No, they're not. I'm just browsing.
Is it casual? But how often do we do that on any subject matter, right?
Yeah.
I've become an expert in orcas and sea turtles on Instagram because that's what the algorithm creates for me. This applies, yes, I'm married to a man who loves orcas, which is why I got into it at first. But now, oh my gosh, look at these shrimp. There's all different species of shrimp. Let's call it what it is. I care if the shrimp's on my plate or not. We'll just say what it is.
Yeah.
Do I actually care about all these deep? And I would love to say that I do.
Yeah.
But the World Wide Web takes us into, and the digital world takes us into the craziest places, healthy places. Please hear me say that we are not trying to get into struggles and vices and the opposite. What I will make a comment to is anti-human trafficking is the biggest important cause in my life. How do we fight that? And that is exacerbated because of the digital world.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, for those of us that are more in the middle of the road or whatnot, and I'll take out that last bit. I don't think I want to say it, but nonetheless, for us, there's so many rabbit holes to go down on the World Wide Web now. And that's why I'm in the world of how do I at 35 years old have some digital health and wellness and starting to call it that rather than call it a detox or a fast. I love those words. Maybe even rather than detox, we switch over to fast, a digital fast where it says, I'm going to pull away for a short bit. Let's do that. I'll change the name, and all of this is rather than a detox as if it's this negative thing that I'm addicted to, which let's call it what it is, I am, but also saying, I want to fast from this because I want to be more spiritual, or I want to engage within the world as it was designed. That leads into a positive, more open-minded framework for me then to engage.
I was going to say, we skipped unpopular.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So when it comes to your phone, unpopular opinion for the week, what is like your most either used or favorite app on your phone?
Unpopular opinion, my favorite app is Instagram. I'll call it what it is. I'm an IG girly because I can see these animals and I can learn about space and I can see what people are doing around the world. It is so cool. It is
Yeah.
so cool. It
And
also needs to
it's
be
so visually engaging.
yes, and here's the other piece, because my most favorite app, similar to you, I
Videos are really
rearrange apps so that way I can have more videos on my phone and more pictures, because I think about that is such a cool thing about phones and the digital world, is that we no longer have to go and get our photos through a
Yeah.
black room and process and then have it to pull out and, hey, did we get 3 out of the whole roll, or did we get 20 out of the whole roll that are actual pictures? So that's just something that I think about, and I know that that's a lost art in some ways too, and so there's some
Mhm.
grief for some people who are like, "I miss the old days." For sure, I
Yeah.
get that. And, well, let's talk about this. Wind up cameras now are so
Mhm.
expensive. Throwaway cameras, I don't know if you've seen, they're like $5.
Oh,
35
wow,
bucks for
no.
one camera. You know what I'm talking about? The old school plastic,
Y
you scroll through, click, click, click.
Like the Kodak, just like a
Yeah,
quick
and then you'd
snap.
hold the front and the light would turn on, you know. So
Wow.
there's going back into this, it's so cool that I can take 15 pictures in a row. I could take 500 and it wouldn't matter, but I can take a picture after picture of my kids when I
Yeah.
travel, of the world, like of
Mhm.
screenshots of digital information that I need to have or think I need to have, right? So I think top 2. Instagram is an enhancement of that because there's really talented people around the world and in the US. And then my photos. I love that. And
Mhm.
that doesn't even have to do with calling or texting, but we'll just throw that out there. The other piece would be FaceTime.
Yeah.
And the amount of time I FaceTime my sister, my mom, or people, I love a good FaceTime.
Do.
What about you? What's yours?
I think my number 1's probably Spotify, and then if my husband was here, he would say Zillow's definitely on my top 3.
I can't even throw shade. I'm with you. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I would say
Spotify's a good one
Spotify.
though.
Yeah.
Spotify's an excellent one to have.
Mhm.
Didn't even think about that one. Music, podcasts. I use Spotify a lot. So that's the
Yeah.
other interesting part, is which one do you use the most, right? Because email, which is boring, but awesome that I have access to it if I need it. But
Yeah,
here's the other cool part about living in a digital world now, is we can work remote, which again can have a
for
shadow side.
sure.
Can have a shadow side of community, of feeling isolated, all those things. And
Mhm.
yet I'm able to travel and be abroad with my husband's family and still get work in for a couple hours. And so then I don't have to fully take, it doesn't give the pressures that used to exist of either you take
Yeah,
PTO or you don't. There's now
right.
that flexibility. The shadow side to that is, do we actually unplug, right? Which is why we get back into what's it like to have a digital detox or a digital fast.
Totally.
And we'll get into some of those rhythms as we've talked about rhythms. So nonetheless, let's get into that then. Unpopular opinion, what's your go-to app? And then
Yeah, I
the
wanna
meat and the
know.
potatoes of this, or the details of digital fasting. I like that you asked what what responses come up, because when I think about digital detox or fast, I'm like, wah, wah, like Charlie Brown's, like they're going off
Yeah.
and I'm like, do I not? It feels a lot of effort. I know I need it, but it feels so I'm in that tension point. But I know if I am saying that, I need it. That's a response. And so going into that, then the digital detox isn't about disconnection, it's about reconnecting. And so today, Jen and I were talking about how can we focus on some of the things that we gain by disconnecting from our phone or unplugging our phone or separating ourselves from our phone.
Mhm.
What's coming up for you in this idea of fasting from the phone?
I think it feels like an investment. It feels like one of those things that we sort of choose to do that isn't friction free, or it isn't easy, or maybe it's hard to start, but we know, or we have evidence that it is good for us. It does positive things for us and our mental health and our overall well-being. And so I think that is something that it's delayed gratification, I guess, because the act of putting your phone away and that first hour or two where you're nope, out of sight, out of mind, I don't have it. You're probably reaching for it or trying to reach for it, or you're noticing a reflex to reach for it and you're like, oh, it's not there. But it's almost undoing that over the detox or fast period of the digital detox, and how by the end of it, oh, do I even want my phone back? Do I? And that takes time. It takes patience. It takes sitting probably with the feeling that you don't want to feel. And I also wonder how much boredom is at play in this. How much of modern day being on our phones, reaching for it, or opening up a different app is us being bored. And that's such an easy solution, or like fix or response.
And what do you like, if you gave yourself a 10-minute break or an hour break from your phone, so you don't have access to your phone, you're done with your work, what would you do instead? What would Jen do with that
Mm.
time? or the boredom?
Honestly, the first thing that comes to my mind is have a real conversation with somebody, not a text conversation, not a email chat. I would probably go chit chat with my hubby or go talk to a neighbor. Going for a walk is another thing. Something that's like analog or doing something with my hands. Reading a book.
That's mine.
What about
I haven't
you?
decided. I am committing to reading 60 books this year or listening to 60 books this year.
Whoa, cool. Cool. I love it.
Because for me, I am someone who loves reading. I'm so nerdy. I love reading. I love escaping. We can get into all that. That might be a whole nother issue of escapism through books. But nonetheless, I really enjoy. And so what I'm doing right now is deciding how many will be yoga focused or counseling focused. How many of them will be, I'm not really a fantasy girl, but how many of them will be more science fiction, but just deciding and it can be listened to, but that is one of my commitments for 2026 is just to do. Can I read 60? Can I listen to 60 books and say twice a month to be able to finish a book? And what it means though is that I am in the car instead of, and again, there's nothing wrong with listening to music. We just talked about Spotify. That's amazing. Or podcasts. That's amazing. And so listening to a book on tape, that still is digital. That's using, and so for you say analog, oh, I might need to review this and say, okay, I'm going to listen to 30 books or 40. I'm going to physically read 20 books this year or something like
Yeah.
that. I need to dig in. That's what is my commitment through this? I'm not sure, but I do want to read more. When I don't even think about the phone, but I say, what do I want for 2026 to hold? Reading is part of that. And so
Mm.
this is one of the ways that I could do that. And then getting outside for 5 minutes, I'm fully unplugged. Just 5 minutes. But I don't do that even. I'm usually on the phone or I'm AirPods in or whatever, and that's fine. But saying, okay, how can I get outside and just sit? I don't even have to do anything. I could crawl outside. I could lay outside. Like it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It doesn't even have to be fitness.
If you think about where and how and when you digitally engage today, if you were to like zoom out on that, where do you feel the cost of that sort of screen time the most in your life? The cost of that constant connectedness to the digital or to our phones. Where do you feel that hits your life the most? Is it your body, your mood, your sleep, relationships?
And now you're putting me on the spot. I love it. Sleep for sure. I wasn't going to say that one until that one came out, but sleep for sure. That's another piece of 2026 is that's why I want to read is that I read at the end of the night and I don't have my phone. So I'm not learning about orca whales and or politics, geopolitical situations or whatever it might
Mm,
be right before I go to bed. Or stay up later because I am doing that. I'd rather a book put me to sleep than one of those things. So sleep for sure. I believe
mm.
so my senior thesis or and when I was going through grad school, my thesis was on the effects of multitasking technology. So this idea
Ooh.
that I would go onto my phone, and this would be a whole nother topic, but the fact that I would go onto my phone because I need to respond to this email that I know was sent yesterday that I need to get back to today. So I go onto my phone to send that email. Well, then I get a notification that you've texted me. And, oh, I want to say hi to Jen. I want to coordinate that with the girls of us getting together. Great, I do that. And so then while I'm doing that, I get another
Mm.
notification that I missed a call from my mom. Oh, let me call my mom. And then, oh, my mom just brought up that really funny story of my cousin who just got a new car. Oh, let me go see it on Instagram or Facebook. And so now, in the span of 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however long, I now have not done the one task that I needed to do. And I've done 4 other things, which are still fulfilling to me. So I want to say this is not about shame. This is saying
Mhm.
I've now, because of a phone that holds so many details or a digital component that holds so many opportunities within it, I've now engaged in 5 different things and my brain's gone 5 different ways, 4 different ways before completing the task I need to.
Mm.
That I think is where we get like squirrel brain or some of these feelings of scatteredness.
Mhm.
And so for me, it's the fuzziness of the brain. I feel like
Mhm.
let me put this out there. I a couple times in my life have lost my phone or I've left it somewhere that is less than ideal. And I either have to have it shipped to me or I have to go get it when I go back. Maybe at my grandma's house, maybe at a friend's lake house back in the day. Maybe, and so I had to wait a week for it. You know what? Let's just do it. And people, guess what? People got a hold of me. It worked out just fine.
Yeah.
And my life was so much more simplistic. So you've talked about
Mm.
in the past all the different stimuli and stimulation that comes from digital
Mhm.
world. I think that that's something where I feel so stimulated that when
Yeah.
I'm actually not engaging with the phone or with the digital world, I'm a calmer human being.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. What about for you? Question back to you. Where does it play out? Body, mind, emotions?
I would say similar actually to what you said. The word that came up for me was just my distractedness. I feel
Mhm.
very distracted when my phone's around, or easily distractible when my phone's around.
And how much of a difference does it make? Let's say we're even talking and we're using digital. Like you and I, a
Yeah.
podcast is digital, which is so cool. You and I are engaging right now, and all of a sudden I look down and my phone, and so you're sharing to the world or to the listeners or to me, and all of a sudden I'm looking at my phone. That automatically, what does that do in your body, Jen? When I'm all of a sudden, yeah, okay, what were you saying?
Being distracted, trying to multitask is it just robs us of the present moment. And I do think that digital, trying to detach good and bad, is really facilitates distractedness and multitasking in a way that I don't think is always beneficial for us. Sometimes it is beneficial. Sometimes it does help to be able to like pull up 4 tabs, navigate through them all, find what you need and be on your way. But yeah, I know in my life, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I definitely think that it is more unhelpful than it is helpful at the present moment.
And or how do we have a relationship that maybe is more professional with it, where it says,
Mm.
I'm in control. Therefore, I'm going to engage when I want to and when I need to,
Yeah.
rather than it controls me and I'm actually the product and I'm being consumed. And so I think that that's something for us as we talk about the hope in it is the brain is adaptable. We get into neuroscience as we think about you and I think about her huddle and us starting this idea of coaching being in this space of, hey, we're a team, we're in this together. How is this playing out in all of our lives? We each have a relationship to the digital world. And some
Hmm.
things are going to be farther along. Some of us are going to be more experts. Some of us are going to be novice and new to this and saying, I have these emotions and these feelings. Sometimes it's depression, sometimes it's anxiety. I want to live a life that I have less of that and more of joy and hope and purpose. And the fun part about taking detoxes or the fun part about the human brain is that it's adaptable, is that
Hmm.
it can mold and it can reshape and all these connections that we have, whether that's scrolling, whether that's the urge to grab my phone and simply have it, whether that's putting my phone downstairs or in another room compared to right next to me, right? How many of us think that our phone's is a fifth appendage? Oh yeah, it's got to be on me. Why does it have to be attached to us? That is not natural. And yet
Yeah.
I will be the first to say, if I don't have my phone on me, oh, I left something at home. Oh, I forgot something. Do I actually need my phone to be safe? Where in most of my interactions in the world, I don't. It's
Yeah.
convenient, but I don't need it for my safety. But nonetheless, I want us to think about our brain being adaptable, that there's the neuroplasticity. There's neurogenesis too. It can regrow even, but the
Mm.
neuroplasticity of it can change, it can mold. We can create new habits to then allow us more freedom, more capacity, more calm. And that's what we're in it
Mm.
for, right? As a team. When we talk about her huddles, it's
Yeah.
saying, hey, let's gather together, let's talk about it, and then let's go execute. What does that look like to play on the field of life? In the field of life to say, hey, how can we do this well? And so
Hmm.
one of the pieces that Jen and I talked about, or that you and I talked about as we went through this for the listeners, is how do we not view short form videos or constant scrolling or all this stimulus coming at us as that we are broken or they make us broken, but rather we are conditioned. Saying we're
Mm.
broken or that's a morality issue means that we cannot fix it. Whereas when we
Hmm.
understand that what's happening to our brain is that it's conditioning us to respond in a certain way, that means then with time and with certain choices, I then can create a life that is reconditioned or conditioned in another way to give life a healthier, more well-filled life. So do you have any things that you wanna choose to do or where you're at? Maybe it's awareness, maybe it's an actual activity where, "Oh, this is what's coming up for me when I talk about digital Sabbath, digital detox, fasting."
Well, I think one thing you said earlier was almost putting the control back in our hands, or us being in charge, calling the shots versus letting our phone call the shots. And to me, what's coming up for me, in the same way that we have a relationship with other people, some of the people that I love the most dearly, I have to set boundaries, and I have to set boundaries with my phone, which I think part of like how I need to view the digital fast, or like a digital detox. I think that's some of what that is. I think it's also fully stepping away and fully unplugging. And part of it for me is also when I'm not fully unplugged, what are the boundaries that I'm like setting up for myself to engage with my phone in a way that leaves me in control. So I think those two things. I think, yes, having periods, moments, designated time blocks where my phone is not in sight. or my computer, whatever, and integrating this sort of boundary driven control relationship where I can integrate that more day to day. There are realities where we all need our phones at some point. We're not here like asking you to throw your phone away forever. I will, for the foreseeable future, have a phone. And so I think that's what's coming up for me, thinking about how do we do the full fast, the full detox, and then what about that do I love, and how do I integrate that in like more day to day boundaries with my phone?
Because in the prep, you had said something along the lines of unplugging. Think about it as a doorway rather than a
Mhm.
punishment. But that's like, as you're sharing, how do I integrate? What do I do? It's that awareness of this is a doorway, almost a social experiment, right? This is
Yeah.
you and I inviting the listeners, but is how do I integrate this into my daily living in a way that's healthy? Because I'm not gonna ruin my phone either. And I don't feel a
Right.
calling to it, and it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
a vice in the sense of I need to get rid of this. Ever, how do I see it as a doorway that allows me into maybe Pandora's box, but maybe something else of what fun journey, what healthier relationships will I have around me because of saying a little less of the digital world, a little more of the real world, of the biological world. I don't know what to call it, right? Because they're very real in many different ways. And so
Yeah.
saying rather than a punishment, what door opens for me in doing this?
Mhm.
And so I'm excited. So I'll share a little bit and then we'll get into 60 seconds to centered and the journal prompt of the week. One of the things though that Nick and I have decided for 2026 is that we are only using the phone for communication
Mm.
of text or cell phone for 72 hours because that is a safety. We no longer have a phone connected to the wall. I want to know if something's happening with my parents or if something's going on. Like that is important to me. I want people to be able to get a hold of us and vice versa. So some people might be like, "Nope, I'm just cutting off for 24 hours. I'm doing it for 10 minutes. I'm doing it for a weekend, whatever it is for you." But for us, and the invitation for everyone is a social experiment. Over the next 12 months, I have no idea how this is going to work. We may say big thumbs down. Some of us may say like thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't really work, 2 thumbs up. And
Mhm.
so what it is though is 72 hours, the last day of the month and the first 2 days of the next month of saying, I'm going to only use my phone for communication. Back to the phones on the walls, that type of style. Maybe I leave it in the kitchen and I'm only going to use it for communication that way for 72 hours and see what does it do to my body. How does my
Mm.
body respond? How do my relationships change with the world? So that is an invitation for you, for John, for everyone who's listening to say, I want to be a part of it. I will throw in the show notes and then also on our website and in our socials how you can be a part of this. There will be notifications and support. So please hear me say, even in the digital detox, we are not fully pulling away and saying, don't do it. It's horrible or any of that. We are going to use it for good purpose. And so in the mornings of each of those three things, there will be a text that goes through as a reminder to say, hey, have fun today and some ideas and some empowerment. Hopefully that comes out that then people can have that reminder and then be unplugged and hopefully re-engage then where they want to in their lives and where each of us want to. So invitation there, take it or leave it. It's not going to
Mhm.
hurt my feelings, but that's something that I need in my own life. And so I'm inviting others into that space because maybe one or two or a whole bunch more will need that in their lives.
Love it. I think
So
that's awesome.
that's that. And then here's a fun one for 60 seconds to centered. Um, I want us to become more aware. That's what this exercise is with. What's my relationship? We started with that. How do I remain curious? And so, in being curious, I want over the next 24 hours from listening to this to be aware of how many times I go to reach for my phone.
Mm.
Or for you, Jen, how many times do you go to reach for your phone over the next 24 hours? And then at the end of those 24 hours, whether that number is 10, 100, 1,000, wherever that next zero falls, to say, I'm aware of the things around me. They are not good. They are not bad. I am aware of the things around me. And that starts to give us permission to, again, not moralize something, but to say, this is my connection and my relationship to the external world.
Yeah.
What's the journal prompt for the week?
So, journal prompt for the week is when I imagine putting my phone away for a full day or a full week, what is the very first feeling that shows up? Relief, panic, boredom, irritation, grief. And what is that feeling trying to tell me?
All right,
Sit
2
with
weeks
that.
from now, we're unplugging, so let's start
Yeah.
processing what are those 2 weeks? Because I'm with you in that, like, I think all of those. Panic in the
Hmm.
sense of, "How do I do this? I haven't done it for so long, I don't really know how, teach me." And then boredom of like, "Oh, hello, old friend. What do I do when I'm actually bored? What does
Yeah.
that mean to me?" And then grief, I will miss out on things. For those
Yeah.
72 hours, I will.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I'm sleeping, I do though, right? We can start rationalizing and we can start to get into the details of it, of why it's still worth it. But nonetheless, these are all 4 that you've listed there and 1,000 more, emotions that we hold.
This is a good sort of like challenging, growth oriented one. I think it may feel not easy. I think the invitation is definitely there, and would love to hear from you all if you are detoxing or fasting from your phones, how that's landing for you.
And it doesn't need to be unresolved. That's gonna be a whole nother
Hmm.
thing for us to say, it's okay that I will not solve this in one
Yeah.
time. In the next year, in the next decade, maybe. Like, we
Hmm.
shall see, and how do we sit with that? So,
Yeah.
all right, thank you, listeners, for joining us as always. And thanks for joining the huddle. We will see you next Monday.
Bye, you all.
Bye now.